friends, and welcome back to Circle in Faith. I'm your host, Christine Barella, and I'm just so honored that you're joining me today. And if you are a new guest, I just want to welcome you to the community of women where we really live by faith in honoring our Lord, where we want to be inspired to do our best to serve Him and reach our optimal potential, and also live life to the full as He's promised us in John 10:10. And if you're a returning friend, I just want to thank you for walking alongside of me in our journey of faith so that we can glorify the Lord in all that we do. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Lesley. And so you're going to want to lean in because this is just an amazing story. And a scary story, but then one with a good ending. Yes. Just wanted to kind of give that disclaimer. If you're going through anything that's traumatic, I think you'll find some inspiration through Lesley. She really experienced probably a mother's worst nightmare, most terrifying experience when her 19-year-old son experienced a very serious traumatic brain injury. And it just turned her world and her family's world upside down. And today she's going to share with us how she walked through that journey and how she relied on the Lord, and just looking back, some of the treasures along the way that now you can grab a hold of and continuing, because the journey's not over. There's still some things that happen every day. And so anyway, without further ado, again, I want to thank you for being here and sharing from your heart and helping other women be inspired along the way in their journey of life. So without further ado, why don't we just start out by you just kind of sharing, a little bit about your family history and how you all ended up in Tempe, Arizona, and then the point of that terrifying accident that happened.
Okay. My name is Lesley Igo. I am married to Ben. We are celebrating our 24th year anniversary this July.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
We have two boys.
Okay.
Cole is 22. Cooper is 20.
Okay.
We've moved all our life together as a married couple, but mainly been in the Southeast and near his family. And we had an opportunity to come west, which my family's lived in Arizona our entire marriage.
Okay.
So we took that opportunity. We were in Vegas for 6 years, and
Okay.
then another opportunity opened up here in Arizona. So we jumped on it. And so we've been in Queen Creek since June of 23.
Okay, so you're coming up to your 2-year anniversary.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And it's nice to have the opportunity then now to be closer to your family since you experienced with his family. That's awesome. And so when you moved to Tempe, then kind of share, I think you guys were living in Tempe, and then kind of, so share kind of what happened. I think it was within the first month that you lived here.
It was.
Because your son was, how old was he?
He was 19.
Okay, he just graduated from high school,
Graduated from high school. So my husband actually got the new job starting April 1st, but we stayed in Vegas because my son was finishing high school and graduating.
Right.
So once he graduated, we moved here on June 2nd in temporary housing in Tempe because our home here at Queen Creek wasn't finished yet. And so we chose Tempe because Cooper was going to be a student at Arizona State University in the fall. Okay. So we thought it would be nice to be kind of basically on campus. The apartment was, he could get acclimated to the area. We asked him to get a job. They've had summer jobs, both boys, most summers through their high school career. So he was going to get a new job, and we were just going to be there for a couple months until school started and then move into our home.
Right.
So
sounds like a fabulous plan.
Yeah, it was a great plan.
But there were other plans that were brewing.
Yes. So he started with that new job, worked there for a week, and got sort of rewarded for a sales that he'd had that first week. And the reward was a party on Tuesday night with the rest of the crew. Okay. It was a pool party.
Okay. In June, yes, refreshing pool party. Yes.
It was June 27th, to be exact. Yeah. So my husband and I went out to dinner, feeling great that our son has this job. He has some friends. He's made this sales goal, so he was invited to participate in this program. So we thought he was good for the evening. We got back to the apartment about 8:30 p.m. I took our dogs down to go out, and while I was gone, Cooper called my husband and told him that he had dove into the pool where they were. He had hit the bottom with his head, and he couldn't hear out of his ears and was not feeling well. So Cooper's had a concussion before as a young child, and so we know the protocol. We were, how are you feeling? Are you feeling sick to your stomach? Are you awake? obviously he was answering all the right questions at that moment.
Right.
We immediately volunteered to come pick him up.
Yes.
But the people that he was with said, no, we will bring him to you, or do you want us to take him to a hospital? And something was telling me that we need to assess him first.
Okay.
So we asked them to bring him to us.
Right.
So they reached us probably within 20 minutes of the phone call. And mind you, when he called my husband, he was speaking and sounded normal. By the time he reached us, the friends had called us 2 more times en route. He had been throwing up the entire time they were in the car, which is a sign of severe concussion.
Yes.
And when they arrived, we met them out front of the apartment complex. We tried to get him out the front seat, and his entire right side of his body, the best thing I can say, was as if he was paralyzed.
Wow.
He could not move his arms. He couldn't move his leg. We were lifting him to get him out of the car, put him on the steps. He was throwing up. He couldn't answer any questions. It was obvious. We had to call 911 immediately.
Right.
So we did. My husband's on the phone with them. I'm talking to Cooper, trying to keep him awake, keep him with us, not understanding exactly what's happening. I mean, he's not bleeding. I couldn't see. I mean, we didn't know. We didn't know what we didn't know.
So there was no blood.
We didn't see any blood. Now, mind you, it's night, but we didn't see any blood. But I, we were kind of interviewing each person. What did he eat? What did he drink? What did, trying to just understand the full picture of what we're dealing with.
Right.
Called 911 a second time because it just, we were just very anxious and it was obvious that something was really wrong.
Right.
911 arrived. They immediately assessed him and told us that they were taking him to Honor Health Osborne.
Okay.
They would not let me in the ambulance, which I was really surprised about. But now, looking back, I understand it was due to the severity of the injury that they understood, but wouldn't necessarily give me that information at that time.
Right.
So they told us.
I think that's protocol.
I did.
Yeah,
I just thought being his mom let me in the ambulance.
Of course. That's not baby. The mama bear comes out like, I want to be in there. What are you going to do?
Didn't quite understand that, but I'm not. I just want to get to the hospital as fast as possible. So I was like, okay. We didn't know where we were going. They kept telling. They told us the name. I know 5 times because we were just trying to comprehend what was happening.
Yes, and being new to the area,
100%.
And you're like, oh, what's the name?
Where are we? Where are we going? Right.
How far away is it?
Exactly.
All the things.
So. Ran to the car, got there as quickly as we could, got to the emergency room waiting area. Told them that our son had just been brought in an ambulance, and they told us to just wait a minute. And literally, probably 5 minutes later, the ER doctor on call came out and told us that they had sent him for a CT scan at immediate arrival to the hospital, that it is apparent that he has bleeding in his brain.
Oh, wow.
And they've called
So the paramedics they knew that.
They knew based on, I think it was his pupils, and he became agitated. I've read the notes, like all the doctor's notes.
So they just knew that there was bleeding on the brain.
They had the feeling. So once they got him to the hospital, they sent him straight to CT to have that checked. And I guess because of the nature of the injury.
Right.
So she said that she felt like there was bleeding on his brain, that they had called the on-call neurosurgeon. And as soon as he got there, they would come back out and talk to us and tell us what the next steps were going to be. So, and I knew what was weird is that she came out, and she didn't come out and just check with us. She pulled up a chair, sat down, and was like, I got to tell you what I saw. I have to tell you I've called this person. We knew that this was not just a normal concussion. This was something more serious. So she told us she'd be back as soon as he got there, and they had his assessment as to what was going to happen moving forward.
Right.
So it felt like forever, but I honestly feel like it was probably only 15 or 20 minutes. He arrived very quickly, made a very quick assessment of Cooper, and they came back out and told us that he had to have emergency surgery.
Wow.
And so I asked if we could please see him before they took him to surgery, and they said yes. So they brought us back to through the doors immediately. signing papers. You know, it's just a
Yes,
it's a
wow.
whirlwind of like
Yes.
signing off on things. You know, asking me questions about what he's eaten, what he's drank. I'm trying to explain what I know,
Right.
what any information that we have. And then the neurosurgeon came up to us, and I don't remember his exact words because it was such a blur, but it was
Right.
something to the effect of, your son is very sick and he has to have surgery right now.
Wow.
So even while he's saying that, I'm thinking we're delaying the process because we want to give him a kiss and a hug before he goes
Well,
back.
yes.
So we tried to make it as quick as possible because I didn't want to delay anything.
Right.
So he said, they'll take you to the waiting room. We're going to do the surgery immediately, and we will, obviously I'll follow up with you at the end.
Yeah.
But he wasn't like, let me give you hope. Let me tell you he's going to be okay.
Yeah,
It was,
nothing.
he's very sick. He did not, I did not get the impression of,
Anything good?
no.
You didn't
I went into
say-
the waiting room fully prepared for
yeah.
what may be the worst case scenario, honestly. And I'm being dead serious and I don't know if that's just me trying to mentally prepare myself, but just, I could tell the way he was speaking to us, that
Right.
it was really bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we go to the waiting room, we call our family, call my parents who were here in Queen Creek, which was nice. So they came up immediately, called my sister, and we sat in the waiting room. And the crazy thing is, on the screen, they show you, it's color-coded, where they're preparing somebody for surgery, they're in the middle of surgery, or they're recovering from surgery.
Okay.
And so you kind of know where they are in the steps of the process.
Okay.
He was in surgery color, and I can't remember the colors now, but I watched it, felt like for hours, not changing. And I remember we prayed, we were, incessantly, and just thinking,
Right.
what would happen if he didn't get to, if something turned, where they just come out and tell us? Would it go to, your mind's like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
How am I going to know how this
Right.
is going
Right.
while we're watching this? And it was probably 2.5 to 3 hours
Wow.
for his surgery. And then the doctor came out and told us that he had to have an emergency craniotomy, that he had hit his head so hard that he had cracked his skull and nicked an artery in underneath
Wow.
that was bleeding into his brain. And it was pushing his brain, because it has nowhere to go, it pushes your brain past the midline.
Oh, wow.
And there's a scale they use. It's called the Glasgow scale, and they use it for comas. And I'm not a doctor, but I'm just explaining my knowledge
yes.
of it.
Yes.
It goes from 3 to 13.
Okay.
So us walking, talking, sitting here right now
Yep.
are 13.
Oh, okay.
Cooper going into surgery was a 4.
Oh, wow.
3 is brain dead.
Wow.
So if his
Whoa.
yeah, and he told us that, and I read it on the report too.
Wow.
So he was 1 score away from
Being brain dead.
yes.
Wow.
So the pressure of the artery bleeding into his brain was shifting his brain past the midline, and if it gets past a certain point, there's a certain point that's not recoverable.
Right.
So what they do is they remove part of your skull so that the brain can swell and heal. And so that's what they had decided to do, and you have to keep it off he had to keep it off for 2 months. But that's part of the recovery.
So, part of his skull?
Gone. Literally, they removed,
Wow.
it was about 7 inches wide, 5 inches tall, and then they put your scalp back on, but essentially there's no protection for your brain at that point.
Yeah. Wow.
But it takes that long for it to heal. So what we were walking into in intensive care was him in a collar, in a intubated. They put him in a medically induced coma.
Wow.
To help him heal.
Right.
And about 80 staples going from here all the way around his head to around his ear.
Wow.
It was frightening. It was absolutely frightening.
I can't imagine.
And his comments to us is that he did excellent during the surgery. Still not hopeful. Like we still have a long way to go. Kind of
the
conversation. Yes, but he said he was the healthiest person in the room, despite his injury, being his age and athleticism and where he was at. So that was all working in his favor.
Right.
Had this injury happened to somebody else of a different
outcome,
physicality, that might be, a different outcome. Yeah. So that was in his favor. But he was in the coma for 2 days. They removed once they removed the breathing tube and he was breathing on his own, that's when things really started to change. And you could see signs of him getting better. But at the same time, we don't know, is he paralyzed?
Right.
Is he going to talk? Be able to do, we don't know what the left side, he hit the left side of his brain, and the left side affects the right side of your body, which is why he couldn't move his arms and legs on the right side when we got to him.
Right.
So the next probably 4 or 5 days we were in the ICU and just going through testing and constantly trying to assess where we're at. Like, what
was he able to talk at all when he first came
Not
out
at
of
first,
no.
no.
Not at first.
No.
Communicate
blinking,
with his
blinking
eyes.
is how he communicated.
Okay. Does he remember anything coming out of the coma? Doesn't remember anything.
Very little.
Wow. Okay.
He really doesn't remember because he went from ICU to a regular hospital room, then to inpatient rehab.
Okay.
He really doesn't remember anything until he got to rehab.
Okay.
Very little prior to that.
It's amazing how God, though, makes the brain so we don't remember some of those traumatic things.
Yes.
Right?
Because it was. I mean, he talks about it. I mean, he had a drain, so there's a tube coming out of his skull to get the excess fluid.
Yeah.
The therapy that he had to go through to get him up and sitting up, taking the tube, the chest tube out. I mean, there was a lot that he endured.
Yeah.
That it's probably good that he doesn't remember.
Yeah. And as a mom, though, you're sitting there watching it
the whole thing.
It's like, just heart-wrenching.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. So, basically 3 weeks total in the hospital between the ICU, the regular hospital room, and then inpatient rehab. And charged.
Okay.
We thought he was going to be in the hospital on his birthday, actually, and he was discharged a week prior. So that was positive. However, because he did not have part of his skull, he had a special helmet that was made for him. It's sort of spongy. It's about 2 inches thick, and he had to wear it 24 hours a day to protect him because he was not going to be getting a replacement skull until possibly 2 months later. So we had to go through all of July and August, all activities, all therapies, all anything that we were doing, he had to wear the helmet.
Right. And so that, obviously he didn't attend school that fall.
He did not.
Of course not.
No.
Yes.
No. Yeah. He was supposed to start, I think, mid-August, and we deferred at least until January. We were going to give him an opportunity to heal and see where we were at. We didn't know what we were looking at. I mean, a traumatic brain injury, the outcome is from here to here.
Right.
I mean, it really depends on the person. And while he was having what they'll even tell you is a miraculous recovery at such a quick pace, we still didn't know what in total we were dealing with. Like, I can tell you, he still today, he has slight paralysis on one side. When he smiles, you can see it kind of it doesn't go up all the way like it used to. But it's endearing, and that's who he is now. That's Cooper's. That's who he is today.
It just reminds you of the miracle that God provided for your family.
Exactly.
Yeah, when it was so close, a score away from being brain dead.
Correct.
I mean, that's a miracle.
It is a miracle.
And then to be released after 3 weeks, and not to have part of your skull, I know. That's amazing.
It is amazing. We found, the doctor we had was, it could have been anybody on call. It was a renowned neurosurgeon. I've read all his background, and he's the guy that God provided for Cooper was phenomenal.
Wow.
The
Happened to be there at that time.
We did. The hospital that the kids were going to take Cooper to versus us asking them to bring him to us and then calling 911, he went to a level 1 trauma hospital.
Mm-hmm.
The hospital that they were going to take him to was not. That could have ended up in a different outcome.
Yes. Wow.
His ICU nurse was tremendous. And she and I talked. She was a faithful woman.
Oh,
Was
awesome.
praying for Cooper regularly.
Oh, wow. That's so amazing.
And guided him through that whole process. We just moved here and didn't have a church yet.
Right.
But my parents were attending a church.
Okay.
Their church is who was praying for our family,
Oh, nice.
sending flowers, sending care packages, sending notes all the time about our family because of us being attached to my parents.
Right.
It was just, it was really incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, having a community of the church community, family community is so important.
Yes.
Yeah. So the women that, just a little short side note, if you're watching and you don't have a community of church or if you've been hurt by the church, find a church that will love you and embrace you, because you never know when something's going to happen and you need prayer, you need support, or at least find a community of women that can help you.
Absolutely.
Because, yeah, like you said, they just come alongside you, and prayer is so powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
And
So powerful.
we're private people to some extent. We don't share a lot of that kind of stuff on like social media or anything,
Right.
but we did put out his story because we needed prayers.
Yeah,
We didn't know what
absolutely.
the outcome was going to be.
Yeah.
And it was just awesome to see the response of people that we didn't even know were believers that were writing to us and telling us that they were praying for Cooper and
nice.
praying for the family. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah. Sometimes traumatic events do bring people to pray when they're not regularly praying people. And so, God has His plans for people. That could have joggled somebody that had some sort of faith, but maybe they came back
Right.
praying for your son. We
Right.
just never know what God has
How was going to
in
use
store.
anything.
Exactly. For anything that happens, whether it's a joyful thing, a miracle, in something every day, or in a tragedy that turns to a miracle.
Right.
Like, we just have to be faithful, knowing that He loves us and uses all things for good, no matter what.
No matter what.
Yeah. And so then Cooper, he came home, and obviously you needed to tend to him 24/7.
Yes.
Like, that was your job.
For the first 2
Yeah.
months, 100%.
Yeah, because that's a lot for him to come home and
And especially with, I was just on high alert without him knowing how exposed and vulnerable he was at that time.
Right.
So then the second surgery was scheduled for August 30th, and they did a composite 3D printed skull is how they made it based off of the drawing.
3D printing.
Off his
Oh my
original.
gosh, I love that.
So he now has that. That actually was a pretty easy surgery in comparison, but it was terrifying because the first one was terrifying for all the reasons of it being just an unknown, but you're doing it because you have to and to save him. The
Right.
second one, knowing all of the risks and going into it willingly, even though it had to be done,
Right.
it was a different level of fear for
Right.
me, and I had to let it go. Because I knew he was taken care of.
Right.
I knew he was, but it was just a different. I don't know. It was just a different level of fear.
Yeah.
But
And it doesn't subside the emotions, and
No.
I think that's too where we have to release our emotions. The Lord doesn't expect us to go, oh, okay, it's going to be just fine. He really wants us to share with Him how we're feeling. We're
right,
scared. Lord, why is this happening? I'm angry. I'm anxious. He wants us to share those so that He can help calm us.
right,
And He didn't expect anything else. He doesn't expect us to walk by faith and not have feelings, because we're human.
Right.
He expects us to walk by faith, and it's okay to have those feelings, to share with Him, and then He can help us go through that journey, walking right next to us.
right.
So yeah, sounds like that's exactly what you did.
We tried.
Yeah.
So he completed that second surgery and went to a couple appointments after that, and finally in October, the neurosurgeon looked at him and he said, "Cooper, you're good."
Wow.
He said, "I want you to just go and live your life and be a young man and move past this. You are a miracle." And
Yeah, for a neurosurgeon to say it's a miracle.
he did. Cooper wrote him a letter to thank him, and he has since retired. we found out.
Oh, wow.
But
wow, so that's
I know.
really recent. So,
Yes.
oh my gosh, just the timing.
I know.
Then. Oh my gosh.
I know.
That's another miracle.
I know.
Wow.
And it was funny too because the type of surgeries they do, Cooper being 19, he's just one age up from being in like a pediatric care scenario. So he was in an adult hospital with the doctors that deal with adults. But in the nature of the injury and the nature of the surgeries they typically do, even when we would go to our checkups, he was by far the youngest person in the waiting room and in the doctor's office, which is kind of sweet because everybody knew, even at our therapies, he was the youngest person by far because he's right at that first age. So he got a lot of attention for that, I think, and everybody remembered him.
Yes.
It was fun for him that was a positive because they were looking forward to seeing him and the miracle that he was. And I will say a cool story. The nurse at the very first surgery, the night of the incident, the nurse that took us from saying goodbye to Cooper before his surgery, that took us to the waiting room and kind of explained that television and how he would understand the colors of the stage of surgery and whatnot, she tried to get us settled, left the room. Fast forward to his surgery on August 30th, when they took us back into the OR to get him prepared for surgery. She wasn't going to be involved in that surgery, but she was there that day. Came over to us, crying, gave me a hug, and said, I cannot believe you guys are here. I am so excited to see how well he's done. He is such a miracle, and I would have never thought this outcome would happen based on what I saw that night.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful and happy to see you guys here. And I gave her the biggest hug because I was like, she was part of our story from the start.
Oh my goodness.
So to hear it again was just like
so affirming that God just showered his miracles on your family. Wow.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Yeah. So he's been recovering. We did we met with a neuropsychologist who did some testing for him because we wanted to know the extent of his injury and how would he handle school, because he was just determined he wanted to go in January.
He's a determined young man. Wait till you hear this. Very. He's amazing. Yes.
So we went to do testing because I just want to be sure he can handle college, and she was amazed at where he was at so quickly from his injury.
Yes.
With all her years experience, she said it was a miracle that he was testing where he was at the time. She recommended he could go to school, but that he should only take probably 2 classes. Of course, Cooper was not satisfied with that. So he did take a full load. And
of course he did. Yes, that's awesome.
And he did get on the dean's list that first semester, which was incredible. It was a challenge, but he was determined to prove her wrong.
Yeah,
if you will. She struck a chord in him that he wanted to.
He's like, no, I'm going full time.
Yep. So he's still in school. We actually did have him retested with her this last December, so it'd be a year after his first testing to see kind of where he's at. Were there any, by that point, a year in, maybe we could determine some long-term effects from the injury and kind of know what we're dealing with forever versus temporarily. And he tested normal and everything.
That's so awesome.
So it is awesome.
Yes.
He still has some things that he deals with, and there's challenges, of course, and there always will be, I think. But he's managing, and we're working through it, and trying to continue to move forward.
Yeah, and the thing too, I'm not sure about about the brain, but young men, their brains continue to develop and grow till they're 25.
Correct.
So, and God can do anything. So you don't know. And sometimes God just allows things to be so that he can use us in those ways. And so I believe he's going to use Cooper in mighty ways for his glory and his kingdom.
We do too.
Yeah, I'm sure he already has. How many lives has he touched? I mean, so many, right? We think of the hospital staff, and he's a miracle, and the people that prayed for him to see where he is today. Right. Just as wow, it's a true miracle, So he's already touched many, many lives.
Right.
Yeah, that is so awesome. Yeah, so he's in his year and a half, right? Yeah, finishing a year and a half.
So he's in the fall he'll start his second semester of sophomore year essentially.
Yeah. Wow. That's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Wow, I just thank you for sharing
Of
that.
course. Thank you for allowing me to
Yes,
share.
and
It's a story I don't get to tell often, but it's a powerful one, I think. And if it helps anybody or
right.
just, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, and just the power of the Lord and just staying, faithful to Him and being prayerful and just, walking side by side and saying, Lord, I trust you,
Yes.
whatever's going to happen. And of course, the power of prayer and community.
Yes.
Having community involved and having those pray. God works in miraculous ways that you and your family have experienced.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it has impacted your family of 4
Mm-hmm.
in a big way.
Yes.
As far as just when something like that happens, you kind of reevaluate, right? Life and relationships and priorities and really putting things in perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I want to close out again thanking you so much for sharing your story and being vulnerable and raw and real, and we cried, and that's just what we do, right?
That's right.
Because we feel for each other, and just for the power of the Lord and wanting all people to know the Lord in an intimate way, because not knowing the Lord really makes going through definitely difficult situations even way more difficult and empty.
Yeah.
And so being on this earth here, we want to have that relationship with Christ so that He can pull us through things that we're going through and help walk alongside of us, because He's promised to do that. But also then when we talk about eternity, we do want to spend eternity in heaven with our Lord and Savior. That's a whole nother podcast for another time. But truly, so ladies, if you're listening, thank you for joining us. And if you need some inspiration, go ahead and reach out to me and message me, DM me. And I'm more than happy to pray for you and help walk you through anything that you are going through. And so if you could do me a favor, if you can subscribe and like and share this with a friend that maybe will inspire them, so that us women, that we can spread encouragement and sisterhood together, because we need each other so that we can do life together. And support one another, because we know that life goes fast and sometimes life can be lonely. So go ahead and share that with somebody. And then if you want to stay connected, I'm going to be releasing inspirational stories every week, every Tuesday. So just hit that notification bell so that you won't miss an episode, that you can be inspired on a weekly basis with hearing stories from other women. And I want to read Psalm 34:18 before I close for today. And it says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in spirit." So ladies, whatever you're going through, just continue to have faith in Him. Know that He's walking alongside of you, and just stay true to Him, and He will carry you through whatever you're going through to the other side, so that you can help others in the future of maybe what they're going through. You can help them from what you went through. So I just want to thank you again. And Lesley, it was a pleasure. And I want all of you to just stay courageous and stay in tune with the Lord and be blessed. And until next time, we'll see you then.